The moment you step through that door, you're no longer human. You're meat. And every man in that block knows it. Your crime doesn't matter. Your sentence doesn't matter. What matters is how you survive the first hour. And most don't. There are no guards to protect you. No handbook. No warning. Just a room full of eyes, watching your every move. They've already decided what you are, long before you say a word. You walk in a man, but if you make the wrong choice in the next few minutes, you'll never be one again. Before we dive into this brutal reality of Russian prison life, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what we're about to reveal will change how you think about justice, survival, and human nature forever. The arrival. So here's the thing. When you think about prison, you probably imagine fights, gangs, maybe some corrupt guards. But the most dangerous moment in Russian prison isn't when someone pulls a knife on you. It's not during a riot or a beating. It's the first 5 minutes when you walk into your cell and nobody says a word. Let me tell you about Dmitry. That's not his real name, obviously, but his story is real. Compiled from dozens of testimonies, interviews, and leaked documents from former inmates who somehow made it out alive. Dmitry was 23 when the heavy steel door slammed shut behind him. Drug possession. 18 months. He thought he knew what to expect. You know, he'd seen movies, heard stories. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for the silence. Picture this. You're shoved into a concrete box with 12 other men. The air is thick, stale, smells like sweat and something else you can't quite place. And every single person in that room stops what they're doing and just stares at you. No one speaks. No one moves. They're just watching. Now here's what Dmitry didn't know. What nobody tells you. This isn't random curiosity. This is an interview. A psychological evaluation. And it's already started. The silent interrogation. Alright, so you're probably thinking, okay, they're sizing him up, figuring out if he's tough or weak, right? Wrong. It's way more complex than that. See, Russian prisons operate on a caste system that's been refined over decades. It's not written down anywhere. There's no official manual. But every inmate knows the rules better than they know their own name. And right now, these men are reading Dmitry like a book. They're looking at his tattoos, or lack thereof. They're listening to how he breathes. They're watching where his eyes go, how he holds his shoulders, whether he's trying to look tough or trying to disappear. After what feels like hours but is probably just minutes, one man speaks. He's older, maybe 40, with scars across his knuckles and a calm voice that somehow makes everything more terrifying. Where are you from, brother? Simple question, right? But here's the thing. In Russian prison, there are no simple questions. Dmitry says Moscow. The man nods. What brought you here? Now Dmitry thinks he's being friendly, trying to make conversation. So he tells the truth. Drug possession. Small amount. First offense. The room gets quieter, if that's even possible. A few men exchange glances. And Dmitry has no idea he just passed the first test. But there are more coming. You ever been in before? The man asks. No, Dmitry says. Good, the man replies. That's good. But his eyes are already moving, scanning, calculating. Because in the next few minutes, they're going to decide what Dmitry becomes for the rest of his life. The hidden hierarchy. Okay. Let's pause here and talk about something most people have never heard of. The prison caste system. And trust me, this is where things get really dark. In Russian prisons, there are essentially 4 categories of inmates. At the top, you have the thieves, career criminals, who follow an ancient code of conduct. They're respected, feared, and they run the show. Below them are regular inmates, the peasants or goats, as they're sometimes called. They keep their heads down, follow the rules, serve their time. Then there's a special category for informants and those who cooperate with authorities. They're outcasts, but not the lowest. At the very bottom, you have the roosters. And listen, I'm going to be blunt here because you need to understand how brutal this system is. Roosters are considered subhuman. They're sexually abused, forced to clean toilets with their bare hands, forbidden from touching food or utensils that others might use. They sleep near the toilet. They're essentially slaves. And here's the truly horrifying part. Once you're labeled a rooster, you never escape that label. Ever. Even after you're released, other former inmates will know. It follows you for life. Now, back to Dmitry. He's standing in that cell, and these men are about to decide which category he belongs in. And he has no idea the test has already begun. The setup. So the older man, let's call him Victor, he starts being friendly. Too friendly. He offers Dmitri a piece of bread from his own meal. You must be hungry, he says. Long trip from Moscow. Dmitri is hungry. He hasn't eaten in hours. The bread looks good. Victor is being kind, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. You see, accepting food from certain people in Russian prison isn't just impolite. It's a social marker. If you accept that bread, you're acknowledging a debt. You're placing yourself below Victor in the hierarchy. And more importantly, you're showing that you don't understand the rules. But Dmitri doesn't know this. How could he? There's another inmate in the cell, younger guy, maybe 12. Let's call him Pavel. He's been watching this whole thing, and he can see what's happening. He makes eye contact with Dmitri and gives the slightest shake of his head, a warning. But it's too subtle. Dmitri misses it. He reaches for the bread. The moment his fingers touch it, everything changes. The atmosphere in the cell shifts. Men who are lounging on their bunks sit up. Conversations stop. Even Victor's expression changes. Just slightly. A small smile. Not friendly. Satisfied, Dmitri has just failed his first test. But he doesn't know it yet. The trap springs now. Accepting the bread alone might not have sealed Dmitri's fate. There might have been a way back. But Victor isn't done. You know what? Victor says, standing up and stretching. The floor near your bunk is pretty dirty. Here, use this to clean it up. He tosses Dmitri a torn piece of clothing. A shirt that's seen better days. Again, seems reasonable, right? New guy should clean up his area. Basic courtesy. But this is the real test. You see, in Russian prison culture, cleaning with clothing, especially a shirt, is something only roosters do. Real men use proper cleaning tools, or they don't clean at all. Using clothing to clean is a mark of the lowest caste. Pavel is watching again. This time he's more obvious with his warning. He catches Dmitri's eye and mouths no. He shakes his head more clearly. But Dmitri is confused. He doesn't understand the signals. He's tired, scared, and trying to be compliant. He thinks following orders will keep him safe. So he takes the shirt, gets down on his knees, and starts cleaning the floor. The silence in the cell is deafening. When Dmitri looks up, every man in that room is staring at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. Victor is nodding slowly. Good, he says. That's very good. And just like that, Dmitri's fate is sealed. The marking what happens next is methodical, cold, almost ritualistic. Victor claps his hands once, and suddenly everyone is moving. They're not violent. They're not angry. They're just efficient. Dmitri's belongings, his few personal items, are moved to a specific area near the toilet. A thin, dirty mattress is thrown down in the same spot. Someone hands him a chipped, stained cup and tells him this is his cup now. No one else will ever use it. Wait, Dmitri says, finally realizing something is very wrong. What's happening? What did I do? Victor looks at him with something that might be sympathy. If you squint, you didn't do anything wrong, brother. You just showed us who you are, and that's it. No ceremony. No official announcement. Dmitri has become a rooster. The lowest of the low. And everyone in that cell now knows exactly how to treat him. For the next 18 months, Dmitri will sleep on that dirty mattress near the toilet. He'll eat from that stained cup. He'll clean bathrooms with his bare hands. He'll be sexually assaulted regularly, and no one will help him. He'll become so broken, so dehumanized, that when he's finally released, he'll barely remember who he used to be. All because he accepted a piece of bread and cleaned a floor with a shirt. The psychology of control now, you might be thinking. This is just bullying taken to an extreme. Right, wrong again. This system is far more sophisticated than simple bullying. What you're looking at is a form of social control that's been perfected over generations. It's not random. It's not chaos. It's order. Brutal, inhuman order. The men who run these cells aren't psychopaths. Not all of them anyway. They're products of a system that demands hierarchy, that requires someone to be at the bottom, so that everyone else can feel secure in their position. And here's the really disturbing part. Most of the time, the men who become roosters aren't weak. They're not bad people. They're just uninformed. They don't know the rules of a game they're forced to play. Think about it. Dmitri's instincts were actually good. Be polite. Follow instructions. Don't cause trouble. In the outside world, these are positive traits. But in Russian prison, they're signs of submission. And submission equals victimization. The system is designed to trap people like Dmitri. Young men, first-time offenders, people who still believe that following the rules will keep them safe. The ripple effect 6 months into his sentence, Dmitri barely speaks anymore. He's lost weight. His eyes are different, hollow, empty. He's learned his place in the hierarchy, and he's accepted it. But here's what's really twisted. He's also learned the rules. And when the next new inmate arrives, Dmitri will be one of the men watching, evaluating, deciding, because that's how the system perpetuates itself. The victims become enforcers. The brutalized become brutalizers. Not out of malice, but out of survival. When Pavel, the guy who tried to warn Dmitri, finishes his sentence and gets released, he carries these rules with him. He knows that if he ever meets another former inmate, their first interaction will be colored by their prison castes. A rooster will always be a rooster, even on the outside. This creates a shadow society of former prisoners who maintain these hierarchies in the real world. Men who were broken in prison stay broken. Men who held power in prison expect that power to be respected on the street. And the cycle continues. The numbers game, you know what's really terrifying. This isn't some rare occurrence. This isn't something that happens to a few unlucky people. Russia has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world. Over 400,000 people are currently in Russian prisons. That means hundreds of thousands of men are living under this system right now. And here's the kicker. Most of them will eventually be released. They'll return to society carrying these traumas, these hierarchies, these learned behaviors. Dmitri served his 18 months. He was released on a Tuesday morning in October. No fanfare, no support, just a bus ticket, and the clothes he was arrested in. But the man who walked out of that prison wasn't the same person who walked in. How could he be? The aftermath. 3 years later, Dmitri still wakes up in cold sweats. He can't use public restrooms without panic attacks. He hasn't been in a relationship since his release. He changes his name and moves to a different city, but the shame follows him. This is what we're talking about when we discuss prison reform. It's not just about making conditions more humane, though that's important. It's set about recognizing that the men and women we send to prison will eventually come back to society. And if we brutalize them, if we break them, if we strip them of their humanity, what exactly are we expecting when they return? Dmitri's story isn't unique. It's repeated thousands of times every year, in Russian prisons and prisons around the world. Different rules, different hierarchies, but the same result. Human beings reduced to animals, and then released back into society. The global perspective now. Before you think this is just a Russian problem, let me stop you right there. Prison hierarchies exist everywhere. American prisons have racial gangs and protection rackets. Brazilian prisons have their own caste systems. Even in supposedly progressive European countries, informal prisoner hierarchies determine who lives and who dies. The specifics change, but the underlying psychology is the same. When you put desperate people in a confined space with limited resources and no real oversight, they will create order. And that order will always involve someone being at the bottom. What makes the Russian system particularly brutal is how refined it is. These aren't gang wars or random violence. This is a social structure that has been perfected over decades to break specific types of people in specific ways. And it works. God help us, it works. The guards' role, you might be wondering, where are the guards in all this? Why don't they stop it? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The guards know. They've always known. And in many cases, they rely on this system to maintain control. Think about it from their perspective. You're responsible for managing hundreds of violent, desperate men with minimal staff and resources. If the prisoners police themselves, if they maintain their own order through their own brutal methods, that makes your job easier. The guards don't have to break up fights if the hierarchy prevents fights from starting. They don't have to worry about prison riots if the inmates are too busy maintaining their own oppressive system to organize against the administration. It's not official policy, of course. No prison manual recommends allowing inmates to sexually assault each other as a form of social control. But willful blindness is just as effective as active participation. And so the system continues, supported by silence and sustained by fear. The impossible choice. So what's the solution? How do you fix a system that's been entrenched for generations? Some reformers suggest more surveillance, more guards, stricter oversight, but surveillance can't capture everything, and guards can be corrupted or simply overwhelmed. Others propose alternative sentencing, reducing prison populations, focusing on rehabilitation rather than punishment. But that requires a fundamental shift in how society views crime and justice. The truth is, there's no easy answer. Because the prison hierarchy isn't just a prison problem. It's as a reflection of how we treat the most vulnerable people in our society. As long as we're comfortable with the idea that some people deserve to be brutalized, that some humans are worth less than others, systems like this will continue to exist. And young men like Dmitry will continue to walk into cells they'll never really leave. The eternal test. 6 months after Dmitry was released, a new inmate arrived at his old cell. 22 years old. First offense. Theft charge. Let's call him Alexei. The heavy steel door slammed shut behind him. The air was thick, stale, smelled like sweat, and something else he couldn't quite place. And every single person in that room stopped what they were doing and just stared at him. No one spoke, no one moved. They were just watching. And somewhere in that room, an older man with scars across his knuckles and a calm voice looked up from his bunk and said, "Where are you from, brother? The test never ends. The system never stops." And somewhere right now, at this very moment, another young man is walking into a cell and making choices that will define the rest of his life. All because he doesn't know the rules of a game no one ever explained to him. The question isn't whether this will happen again. It's happening right now. The question is whether we care enough to do something about it. If this video opened your eyes to a reality most people never see, share it. Let others know what's really happening behind prison walls, not just in Russia, but around the world. Leave a comment below. Do you think prison systems can be reformed, or are some institutions too broken to fix? Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dive documentaries into the hidden systems that shape our world. Because understanding these realities isn't just about satisfying curiosity, it's about recognizing our shared humanity, even in the darkest places. Thanks for watching how new prisoners are welcomed in Russian jails. Stay informed, stay compassionate, and remember, these aren't just stories about criminals and victims. These are stories about human beings. And that makes all the difference.